He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cryptid Clues. I'm your host, Reuben, joined by your other also host, Taylor. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our trip to the Nicola Valley Bigfoot Conference, which was absolutely spectacular. And Taylor, I'm going to let you get right into it and take us away.
Well, as you said, this event was spectacular, and we're both in Kelowna, so getting to take a little bit of a road trip out there, that was the first like hype moment for me.
Packing up the family and going up through the high roads there, my ears were like popping so bad at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But partway there, just at the height, like the top of the mountain heading towards Merritt, my son threw up. Just started vomiting, and okay, we made a mistake. We let him have a little bit of chocolate milk on the trip up. So of course, milk isn't the greatest thing to settle someone's tummy. So we pulled over up on the highway, just started cleaning it up. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to be late. Because we were going to beat you there. We were totally, we left earlier than you. We were going to beat you there. And my son was just like, no, we're not beating Taylor there.
I was expecting you guys to beat us there. But you still, even with that occurrence, were only maybe 8 minutes behind us. You pulled in pretty quick after we did.
Yeah, that's exactly how long we took to clean up the puke.
8 minutes total.
8 minutes of puke cleaning.
Yeah. Well, I've not been to Merritt that often. I've probably been there. Usually it's a pit stop to gas up before you hit the Coquihalla as we're heading down to the coastline, but I haven't really explored it. So it was great to actually explore it with you and check out a few places. And yeah, particularly the Bigfoot Conference.
I'll have to give them some merit for that.
Yeah, there you go. So you have probably heard us promoting it, shouting it out on our episodes. We had Sheldon from the Nicola Valley Bigfoot Podcast join us for an episode and talk about the conference, share some of his experiences and some other things. It was a pleasure having him. We got to meet him, but we'll talk more about that later.
It was like looking for a celebrity when we got there. I was like, oh, where's Sheldon? Where's Sheldon? And really I saw him and I was like, I'm in his presence. But it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I guess it was kind of like meeting a celebrity in a sense. And they're a really good podcaster.
Really, it really is. It's exciting. Yeah, you get kind of nervous, but it's like we're all on the same ship. I mean, he's eons leagues ahead of us by all means with everything he's built and created. It's fantastic.
Really made us come out of our shell.
Yeah, totally. So the entire conference ran from 8 to 6:15-ish, and 8 o'clock is when the vendors set up and everything like that. And it was organized great for guest speakers to give advice, receive questions all throughout the day when they had their presentations. And it started off with Sheldon at around 10 o'clock, just greeting everyone at the conference. So with doors open up to the public around 9. I think we got there after 10 sometime. We were there just to, have a good time, listen, engage, and just take in information.
Yeah, it was the moment when we walked in there, and it was kind of sort of beginning. I think there was somebody up getting ready to talk, and there was the person in the Bigfoot costume up front just taking selfies, and I was like, I want a selfie. Bigfoot nods his head or whatever, and I took the worst selfie. You guys got a nice selfie. Taylor's like, oh, you take a photo of us, and I took a photo of Taylor and Madison. Everyone is like, oh, great. And then my selfie is me holding my son awkwardly with my phone in selfie position, and the Bigfoot trying to be in the photo. And it's the worst angle. It looks like the kind of photo that you see a dad upload.
It's a good thing you're a dad.
I guess so, but it was like the kind of photo you see of like an older dad. Like you go on Facebook, you add somebody or whatever, you know, they'll have nice profile pictures. And there's always that one dad that like has like the picture where he takes like himself either like super up close in the camera or he's like leaning back on the couch and he's holding the phone up super close to his face to compensate for not leaning into the photo. And it's just like the chin and up, but he's like looking up as well. So the chin is like tilted up. That was my selfie with Bigfoot and my son, who's like barely in the corner too. Like it's like me, Bigfoot looking over my shoulder, and then my son like just peering down from the corner.
I should have took a proper one with you and Megan and your son all in that photo together.
Oh, we got a nice one after. Like you and
we
I
did get a
together
nice one after. Yeah.
Jace. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. What did you think of the vendors?
Oh, I loved it. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot of Bigfoot stuff. There was a couple. Like there was some Bigfoot themed merchandise things to buy, but there were some good shops. There was the guy that made like the different fillet knives and stuff. There was the wood burning shop there that was really good. I ended up buying most of my stuff from the wood burning shop, and I got a knife. And then there was like some nice little like t-shirts. There was a couple of vendors there that had like some really nice like native lanyards and stuff like that. It was good. And of course, then Sheldon, and I'm assuming it was his wife there, selling food for everyone at the conference. There was Bigfoot coffee up front that I was kind of debating on buying, but I didn't.
Yeah, I was debating getting that from Madison as well. Did you get to try out your knife? Because that was just absolutely beautiful craftsmanship.
No, so we went fishing. I got a fish, and I ended up using, because we were out there, I didn't want to take my beautiful knife out in the boat with so many people on the boat. So I ended up just using a Shimano knife to fillet my fish, and I was like, oh, I should have brought the good knife, the Damascus steel knife. It's so good.
Then other people are gonna want to be like, oh, can I see it? And you don't. People drop things. You don't want to lose that in the bottom of a lake.
Exactly, and I'm skinning the fish on the side of the boat too. So I was like, oh, the boat's moving. I want to skin the fish and like throw the guts back in the water, bleed it out right away and stuff. So I'm gonna save it. I'll get a bunch of fish, come back. I'm gonna flay them.
There you go.
Flay them all with the Damascus steel knife. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, I totally agree. The vendors are fantastic. It was really cool just to see again the Sasquatch themed merchandise that was up for sale, and I had no idea what to really expect going in here. It's year one, and I was telling Madison on the drive down, like, yeah, I'm not expecting it to be the grandest thing like the PNE fair or the IPE, the Armstrong fair. I just thought this is a starting off conference, and for me, I feel like it started off strong. The fact that they had vendors alone was much more than I was anticipating. I think that was great.
Well, and he sold over like his ticket count too. There was 200 seats, and he said he sold around 280 or so. I think when we checked in, he had sold 280 at the time. And there were people popping in and out, just kind of checking on it too. So there were lots and lots of extra people that just kind of like poked their head in to see what was going on. And unfortunately, there were no seats left. But yeah, it was good. Sold out.
Yeah, and I think that just sets the stage for them to do it again next year, or maybe take a year break, do it again the year after. But it was obviously a massive success.
Absolutely.
But as you mentioned when we got in there, yeah, Blaine McMillan, he was the first to take the stage, and he was scheduled for 10:15. And then after that, they had Alex Solinak, and that was around 11:15. And then at 1 p.m. it was Jason Zackerson. I'll talk about the other folks that go up after, because they kind of shifted the scheduling around a little bit. But with Blaine McMillan starting off at the beginning, now they I just think that they did a great presentation, and I was jotting notes down, highlighted some moments for myself that he had mentioned during his presentation and afterwards during the Q&A session. One of the things that I wanted to highlight here was when you're out there, make sure you have a digital audio recorder you can place in the wheel well of your vehicle if you're camping overnight. I thought that was very cool. And just for the listeners, I'm going to be like touching upon these important notes that they've mentioned. Just if you go out and do squatching, me and Reuben go out again in the future, it's just there's some cool bits of information that was shared and different perspectives as well. But putting the audio recorder in your wheel well while you camp overnight, I think that's very, very intriguing. What do you think of that?
I think the presentations had a lot to do with the audio recordings, because I mean, it's so hard to get video. And audio you can inspect quite well. It's very worthwhile to have. And if you have a little digital recorder, much less awkward to leave that out versus, you know, setting your phone on the outside of your car or something where you can get taken because phones are expensive. Little audio recorder is good enough for that. Phone microphones are not the greatest anyways, so you can spend a little more for a good audio recorder and still not be out of pocket money if you lose it out in the woods.
Yeah, and from what I can tell, these cryptids do enjoy vehicles. There's something pulled toward them.
And they don't seem to mind their audio getting recorded. I don't know what it is about that.
That's true. That is another thing. They're not pleased to have their photos taken or be caught on film. But yeah, there's something about the audio recording that they're definitely fine with. Very odd. Family groups have one sentry on duty. That's something that Blaine had mentioned. And then the question was pitched to him, why haven't we found a body? And you and me did an episode on this as well. Check it out on the feeds. But hundreds and hundreds of thousands of deer die all the time out there. And I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit of what Blaine was talking about. Pine trees drop a ton of pine needles onto the ground. And these needles are actually quite acidic, thus creating an acidic soil that aids in decomposition at an accelerated rate. So when you stack that with the body being picked apart by scavengers, within a year, you can see the body completely absorbed into the soil. Now, I looked into this, and according to the University of New Hampshire, they indeed can confirm the acidity in pine needles, but they do not confirm they have a noticeable effect on the pH levels of the soil, and pH is a measurement of acidity in the ground. So I think it probably would vary on the area. I can't speak anything more beyond that. But I do think that there's probably some credibility to that if the soil can be more, well, maybe not even necessarily the soil, but if the pine needles are all falling on top of a carcass, that would probably make it very, very acidic, and that would aid the decomposition as opposed to the soil.
Acidic stuff aside, finding a predator body out in the woods, we already know is quite slim. You ask anybody to go find a bear carcass or go find a cougar carcass, and there's maybe one or two on record. There's really not much. And for a creature like a bear or a cougar, that is so much more common than a Sasquatch. Having one or two bodies at all of those things kind of shows you how little we have to really go on to find a Bigfoot body. It's probably not going to happen unless somebody shoots one.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly it. It leads right into my next point here from Blaine. Being an apex predator, hurt or dying, they would go somewhere remote, hidden, and safe for them to die. And we know that this is certainly a trait for living things because many creatures on Earth, I default to Exhibit A, the house cat. And with this, essentially, it's an understanding of being vulnerable to predators and retreating to somewhere of comfort, exactly like Blaine mentioned in his presentation about Sasquatch. Totally makes sense, in my opinion, like you were stating. One of my favorite quotes from the show, from Blaine, they are smart, they adapt, it's their forest. Just made me really, really freak out just hearing that.
That sounds like a movie trailer voiceover. They're smart, they adapt. It's their forest. Coming soon to theaters.
There you go. Oh, I want to write a Bigfoot movie. So our next presenter, Jason Zackerson. And I really like Jason. I think he actually, because again, we skipped out, I should say, we skipped out for some food here. We want to go check out because I had my wife and you had your family with you, so we had to accommodate.
That was a good trip. We got some good food. It was really delicious. We had it was a Korean style beef burger.
Oof.
Oh, it was so good. It was very expensive, but after that, because we got back in the journey, and my son, his clothes just reeked of puke because he was wearing his outer clothes, so we switched him to his lighter gear, which it wasn't quite warm enough at the time for some spots up there. So we went over to Walmart and we bought him some fresh clothes afterwards. And I'm desperately trying to find stuff in his size, just randomly buying a set of clothes for him to wear that's not the stuff he's currently wearing. And then getting back in the journey and being like, oh, yeah, it's a little pukey in here. It stinks. Could we put everything in a bag and then tied up the bag and put it in the back? But yuck.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's
I bet our listeners just love hearing about throw up.
Well, it's all part of the journey. Well,
it's the Dodge journey.
It's all part of the Dodge journey now.
All part of the journey.
But yeah, we gave our families that reprieve. We accommodated them because they're real troopers. And it was funny because there were certain moments in the audience. They're like, oh, who here is here because someone brought them here for Sasquatch? A lot of hands went up. There's a lot of people that were dragged to this conference. So that was very amusing. But I digress. When we got back, though, after our little excursion, we tuned in for Jason Zackerson. And listening to his presentation, Jason had some great points. And all in all, like, just a lot of good information was shared that would help us improve on any of our future Sasquatch treks that we would undertake. And our spot we explored recently, it had a lot of fresh logging that was taking place. And you can check out that episode because we discussed it, our expedition. But Jason noted, importantly, that you want to find out when they're cutting, where they're cutting. Sasquatch, they hate the sounds of excavating and dozers coming through, cutting down the forest. I'd expect nothing different. But you can try and make friendly chatter with the workers, see if they've noticed anything peculiar happening, whether it be things getting tossed around, rocks getting thrown, or just sounds from the woods.
So, Taylor, what would you do? You go up there, we go into the woods, and we find some loggers. They're just working there. How do you approach them? What do you do? What are you wearing? How do you present yourself? I want to know.
Well, first I'm not gonna come off the road. I'm gonna actually come out of the trees, and I'll wear full like black skin tight costume. I'm just kidding. No, I'm gonna be as like,
you're gonna get shot.
yeah. I'm gonna be very much visible. High vis jacket. I'm gonna be driving in on my vehicle. And I'd probably just pull off to the side, and I would just, I don't know. Do you bring them snacks? You bring them like a couple of coffees? Be like, hey, I'm just driving out here with my friend, and we want to talk. And we're just kind of wondering if there's been anything weird happening in the area. Oh, here's a coffee, just try not like butter them up, but try to make it like we're all friends here. And I imagine that I'd like to think that they'd be a little bit more open to it.
So here's my plan. I want you to do exactly that. But I'm going to follow up separately. 20 minutes after you leave, I'm going to approach the workers in a nice full suit, my hair slicked back, and black sunglasses on. And I'm going to approach them with a clipboard. And I'm going to say, hey, did you just talk to a gentleman by the name of Taylor? Did he ask you about anything strange? Right. Have you seen anything out here? Genuinely curious. The government would love to know. And which way did which way did Taylor go? Right. Well, enough about that. Let's talk about these Sasquatch creatures you said you were seeing up here. And what was going on? That's how I'm going to get my information. So if they're not willing to share what you did, I might be able to get something out from the people that don't want to share with you.
That's really, really intriguing. I'd really be curious to see how that would actually play out. Oh my goodness. So you're not betting on me getting the information, but you're betting on it just being a more formal approach and them respecting that formality?
And then after I leave, 20 minutes after I leave, an actual CIA agent's going to come up and be like, hey, did you see an impersonator up here by the name of Reuben?
And tell me, what direction did that Taylor guy go into?
What we're going to do as well is we're going to time it. So after we go up to an area, we're going to look and see if there's any helicopters around. And we're going to wait until a helicopter flies over for my approach.
Gonna just torment these guys. That's actually, though, I really do like that idea. I feel like, again, you're kind of screwing with them in a sense of impractical jokers, but I also feel like you're kind of generating two very different responses.
They're practical jokers. Are you in my ear? Do you have I have an earpiece on and you're talking to me like, now tell them more about the thing I was wearing, the thing I did. And this Taylor guy, he was wearing that high-vis vest. Did you notice the anime girl on the back of it? He's genuinely unhinged.
Maybe we won't do the ear. Well, I mean, you have to have an earpiece. You're a CIA agent.
And then you're going to respond back to me like, Reuben, pull some watermelon out of your pocket and offer it to them. Let's see how they react.
Oh, we can have a lot of fun. Maybe in the future we'll turn into a YouTube show or something like that.
Oh,
you've been there, done that.
I'm not doing that again. There's enough weird videos of me online now.
Well, I digress. Getting back to Jason Zackerson. So he talked about how these creatures leave behind a white film, like an oil that is produced from their fingers when they touch things. And again, we talked about vehicles. It's on the fingertips. And so Jason highly recommended a finger dusting kit for further examination. Now, we know that footprints are one thing, getting casts, but hand casts are exceptionally rare. And I do believe anything hand related, just outside of a cast, is even more like near impossible.
That's when you got to go up there with a nice clean Jeep.
Yeah, there you go. Although when you're driving on those dirt roads, it does get a little dusty and everything like that. Gotta go when it's like raining, probably. Well, no, because it would wash the fingerprints off.
That's okay. It gets dusty and then they touch it, and that's what leaves the print. So you actually get to see the handprint, and you go, oh, now we put on the dust printing kit, and we get the proper fingerprints off of it.
That's true, actually. That's very
get more detail that way. But if you haven't cleaned the Jeep beforehand, you go up there with a bunch of other stuff coated on. It's not going to rub off. You're not going to be able to tell that something touched the Jeep.
Mm-hmm. You make a good point.
I know. I'm handy like that when it comes to fingerprint conversations.
One of the follow-up questions here from the audience was, if Bigfoot can see UV light, a way to draw it in instead of using food and stuff, get a rock that glows UV to attract Bigfoot to it, where it won't attract pests and stuff like food would. And I thought, okay, that is very enticing to try, very intriguing.
Yes, and actually I was thinking at the time too, what about just like a standard glow-in-the-dark kind of thing?
Like just not a glow stick, just a regular glow-in-the-dark, like those glow-in-the-dark stars? Something like that.
Exactly. I'm curious to see what that would do too, because that's like a weird thing to have out there, and it's not food either.
Mm-hmm. Something that they would just be very unfamiliar with that would get their attention, and other animals would pay no mind to it. Yeah, you're right.
Or pair it with the UV thing.
Mm-hmm. Pair it with it, absolutely. Jason mentioned Malaysia, among other places where Sasquatch has been sighted, which I was not expecting. And I looked into it and sourced the name, the Orang Mawaz. And this is an episode I did last week because we bumped this episode to this week. So I did a deep dive and explored it. So you can actually go and check out last week when I explore the Malaysian Sasquatch. Now, this is where the scheduling kind of went all topsy-turvy because I really wanted to get back here and I wanted to listen to Leon Thompson speak. And some backstory to this was I was doing research into local Sasquatch groups and found Okanagan Bigfoot. And this led me to Leon Thompson. He was guesting on an episode of Sasquatch Tracks. Go check that out. And I really liked the episode. I loved it. His approach to Bigfoot and how he was talking and presenting the conversation, and knowing he was a speaker at the conference was really exciting for me. His presentation had some great highlights, and I wish he could at times answer the blatant questions that others. I guess there are some questions about Bigfoot again that I think it was tricky to kind of respond to because he was very linear on his approach and what he was trying to say. But in short,
he was he had just recently come out of the hospital or something. No.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it was very impressive, great, a lot of passion there, just to have him just come out on stage and after going through some health issues. But
and his topic too was quite interesting. He talked a lot about the psychology.
Absolutely, yes. Approaching it with like a logical, don't trust everything mentality, and a couple of those bullet points. People see things online that creates a narrative that blurs the truth. Critical thinking, vet the specifics to meet and declare the truth. Don't trust all your sources. Videotape your mistakes. Find these answers for yourself. And he didn't seem totally fond of the BFRO, and he presented interesting information. He presented and debunked many reports. One from East Kelowna, which came in a couple years ago. He debunked that, and
he even dabbed on Matt Moneymaker there. That was quite interesting. But I really enjoyed that his approach wasn't to just talk about a Bigfoot topic. It was to give the audience the tools to gauge these reports and judge things for themselves, to filter out the hoaxes, the lies, all that stuff, and leave them with only the truth.
Absolutely. There were definitely people in the audience that I don't think were they were less than supportive with his topics. And I mean, that being said, what he was speaking to in a similar fashion, where I like to say 99% of all Bigfoot content online could be faked, but there is always that 1% of truth. He showed us a speed roll of, I think, 47 videos of Sasquatch sightings. And it was just really cool to see it. And there's a lot that you and me have talked about. We did an episode going through some Sasquatch videos, and there was a lot of other ones that I've never seen before. Some that you could clearly tell were fake, and other ones which were very, very convincing. Like the one with the mom grabbing the baby, lifting it up to its chest, and like sauntering off.
Yeah, I think the approach that disconnected the audience was that because he had just recently come out of the hospital. He felt like his mental function was hard for him to get up and do a conference speech. So he had a very direct, blunt approach. And one of the first things he started off with was, I'm going to involve the audience. And I'm going to catch you guys in some things and see if I can keep your attention using these tactics that we use for speeches. And people weren't expecting to have to answer questions themselves. So when he was like, hey, what's this a picture of? Nobody wanted to speak up. And then somebody would, and he'd be like, yeah, exactly. I don't think the audience wanted to be involved in answering questions as they wanted to ask the questions, which wasn't his fault. It was just the conference and the approach wasn't the right timing for that kind of a speech. But he did an amazing job considering his background of what had recently happened and stuff like that. And I think that's where the audience was more forgiving with it.
Yeah, absolutely. The next presenter here after Leon's presentation. Now you and the family had to dip out a little early here, and so
Well, I had my 3-year-old who was phenomenal, super quiet.
He was
good.
Legendary.
Didn't make a peep in the entire conference for what we stayed for, but he was getting antsy, and being the only parents there with a child, I didn't want to push it. No, I didn't want to ruin anything with the conference. I didn't want my child to suddenly have a freak out, right? So we stayed for what we could and respectfully left before my child might have started to get out of hand.
So Judy Carroll came on next, and I would say this was Sheldon's highlight. And when you were leaving at this point in time, like Madison was very, very tired. And again, like we're expecting, so she's definitely just been a trooper and just there listening to me and listen to the speakers and just supporting me being there. And I was starting to feel bad. Thought, well, it has been a very long day. We've been here all day. Like maybe should I take her home? But she was like, no, let's like stick around. This is all good. I'm like, okay, well, if you're game, then okay. Then I'm happy to stick around. Like this is all good information. And Judy Carroll was by far my favorite presenter. I mean, everyone was fantastic, but Judy Carroll definitely, it was a very moving presentation. And I recorded a lot of it. I sent you little bits of it too. It is a shame she was at the very end, because the crowd definitely slimmed out near the end of the conference compared to the start. And I feel like she definitely had so much good information to present and a lot of audio recordings. But I'll give kind of like a summary here. She was introduced as a Sasquatch communicator. And in my opinion, she took both the scientific and spiritual components, combined them together to create like a bridge between the two, giving her backstory that led to her first encounter and grew into what she can do now. And it was just a very passionate presentation. And it's almost like texting with Sasquatch by leaving items and sticks in certain formations behind and seeing them in different positions later on and identifying what the response means. And like I said, she had a ton of Sasquatch audio that she was playing, featuring a lot of click language. And click language is prominent in South and East Africa, but it's claimed that language may have been part of one of the first fully articulated human languages that appeared among some groups of early humans nearly 50,000 years ago. So interesting, but by all means not confirmed relation between early humans and Sasquatch there. And I just think that's fascinating. It's truly, truly fascinating.
Oh, I believe it, because you go back through Sasquatch history, which essentially goes into things like the wild man and tribal legends and stuff. That goes back to the human Bigfoot kind of theory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. She mentioned how Sasquatch can mimic any sounds and repeat voices. A lot of the things she touched upon were things that were just pre-existed components of other people's sightings, and some things which I'll get into about what even Ron Moorhead talks about.
With Sasquatch repeating stuff that it hears and being able to mimic sounds, that really makes me think of this parrot video that was going around online. Probably a very sad video of an abused parrot, most likely. And the caretaker, trying to take care of it and not get bit, was being gaslit by the parrot because it would say to the owner, "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you.
Oh my
Come here, don't you bite me. I'm not going to hurt you." And then it leaps at her and bites her, and it's like, oh, I can just picture you're out in the woods. Can you imagine hearing that? You're walking down the trail, and then you hear this somewhere from a deep voice, "I'm not going to hurt you."
No, thanks. Nope. Mm-mm.
And then you hear some Sierra sounds there, and then, "I'm not going to hurt you."
Oh, no. That would not be okay. I would definitely
you see
not
like a
trust
little
it.
like hand come out of a bush and like motion for you to come here.
Yeah, no thanks. Oh, that's terrifying. Those reports where people say that it mimics a voice, it says their name, but they hear it in the voice that that's not their friend that's calling out to them. It just gives me the absolute shivers. So, like I was saying though, like it's interesting though, because in many reports, when you hear that case where like the name is being repeated to them back from the woods and they immediately know it's not their friend, she referenced the lyre bird. Have you heard of this bird before?
No.
I have not either. And it can mimic sounds, a chainsaw sound, camera shutter sound, a bunch of other bird species calls. But I Googled it. I looked at a video and
Camera shutter sound?
Oh my God, Reuben, you need to listen to the lyre bird, narrated by David Attenborough. I can picture the little bird making the shutter sound. Every time one of us mispronounces something, the bird just pops up. Gotcha. Oh yeah. It is spot on. The chainsaw is immaculate. It would fool anybody. The camera shutter with that little like immaculate car alarm, it blew my mind. And you see it like vocalizing these different sounds. I couldn't believe it. It was nuts. But the point is though, that many other animals share this ability to recreate sounds that could fool many people, many other animals. So I highly recommend you check out, if you're listening, check out a video of the lyre bird replicating sounds. It's insane. Now getting back over to Judy's story, her communication led her to spending a night alone in the woods, out in the open, not sheltered, no walls around her, no tent, anything.
That's spooky. I don't want that.
Very spooky. So once midnight hit, she could hear the bipedal footsteps in the tree line surrounding her campsite. And this is after a very long journey of communication with Sasquatch that she was talking to us about. She went back to sleep.
She's quite comfortable with it at that point.
She is comfortable. Yeah, it was a lot of communication and a lot of just learning and understanding. And it led her to this point where she knew she had to do this. And she was scared, but she was relatively comfortable. When she woke back up at 3 a.m., it was because something actually like placed its hand on her shoulder and then quickly darted off. That would do it in for me. I would be so terrified.
I'd be running at that point.
Oh, yeah. She also exclaimed that she has been escorted out by them before, not in a threatening way, but again, this just parallels to other people being escorted out of the woods. But she felt that it was much more in a protected aspect, where one was on each side of her in the tree line, walking her back to her vehicle as she was leaving. So ultimately, though, Judy presented how she believes they are light forms, using quantum mechanics to come between dimensions. The electronics all should be put down. You should rely on your senses only. And like we talked about earlier, however, she specified that audio recorders don't seem to bother them at all and recommended bringing one of those. Just any good quality one off of Amazon would do the trick. So, and I quote, "If you dismiss the data, you're not practicing the scientific method." End quote. Judy Carroll. I thought, okay, that is a very, very fascinating quote. I think it applies in many aspects. She told us that she went on many BFRO treks, noted the BFRO does not publish reports that involve orbs or anything supernatural related to Bigfoot. I think you've mentioned that before in previous episodes, which is a shame because you could imagine how many more encounters and reports would actually be on that website if they did take those in.
That, yeah.
Mm-hmm. couple of bullet points. Always ask for protection when you go into the forest. There are both good advanced beings and the darker negative ones, referring to Sasquatch, good and bad ones, which we've talked about before. For some reason, the eyes, red-eyed ones and such, smelling the sulfur. She talked to you about connecting with ferns, lifting your hands up and down, the fern mimicking you, and we are nature. We're not separate from it. Talking about trees, heart energy, a lot of stuff like that I really resonated with. And she talked about how, again, they are light beings. Quantum mechanics are prominently attached to them, so it allows them to be both physical and invisible. And this is something that we discussed with Ron Moorhead. And I loved how, again, we have the scientific and the spiritual aspects coming together. There's a lot of division among people in the Sasquatch community, but Judy just brought an amazing balance in her speaking of this. And she mentioned too, she has a scientific background. And like I said before, that it bridges these two things together. So throughout the whole conference, I would say most of the crowds, like I did earlier, dwindled as the speakers went on, and they had questions and they had small bumps against each other and with the speakers. But once Judy took the stage, she really brought the energy of the room together into one cohesive vibration. Like, it was absolutely amazing. I just was looking around and everyone was just like, for the most part, nodding their heads. Everyone from just different backgrounds. Just, it really felt like, okay, we're really just intertwined together, taking in this information. She has a website called Heart of Ho, and it's basically a journey within, and she brings people out one-on-one sessions where she brings someone out and you can actually perform this communication with sticks and stones to see if you get a response to these certain spots where Sasquatch are. I took a photo of how to initiate this conversation, and I want to do it, but I am absolutely terrified. If I go back, and I don't tell anyone where I did this, and I go back and those are moved in another like formation, what the heck am I going to do? Like, it probably would lead to the same thing she mentioned, where you'd have to stay and spend a night out there alone without anything around you or above you. I don't think I could conquer that fear. I really don't know if I have it in me.
I'd do it with you.
You would do it with me?
I would do it with you. And I would pinky promise that we're not going to prank each other moving these sticks and stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, I would say, like, we put our own sticks. Like, we're in a relatively, like, similar, like, proximity, but where we don't know each other's are. That way we know it's not mumbo jumbo for each other. But I'm very intrigued to try it out and see what happens. But just fantastic. At the end of that, I went backstage. I said, "Hi, Judy. My name is Taylor. Your presentation really moved me. Really, really liked it. It just felt great. Driving the whole way home, I was talking to Madison about it. We were just reminiscing about her presentation and just talking about it. It was just really, really wow. Just hits home. A couple of miscellaneous notes I have here. You can really see in the guest speakers how they discuss and channel what they believe. Many questions asked about if Bigfoot is a zoologist component, paranormal, or spiritual. And it's very much allotted to multiple tiers of belief that do not really cross over into each other. A few people were just set in stone, like, yep, it is a living, breathing creature. This thing is not spiritual whatsoever. And others that are more like, yeah, no, it's spiritual. So it's cool to see different perspectives like that.
It is. And I will always take the back seat to that and just keep an open mind, thinking any one of these could be proven true. And we won't know until we know.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of talk about the alien Sasquatch. There was someone that posed that question, and I think it was to maybe was it Blaine? I think it might have been Blaine at the very start. And I think, if I remember correctly, Blaine talked about how if you see Sasquatch around the same time you see a UFO, he didn't believe that they were coming off that ship or anything like that. He believed that just like cows, just like we humans, just like everything on this planet, if an alien comes down, they're just going to pluck what they want and just put you back. So I like that kind of explanation. It was very interesting. And maybe it's just people seeing that the Sasquatch were abducted and the aliens are just putting them back on the planet.
That poor Squatch. Can you imagine being like native to Earth or something and an alien picks you up, puts you down, and somebody else sees you and goes, oh.
Yeah, you got to deal with humans. Humans is one problem. Now you got to deal with aliens too. That's a lot. It talked about sticks and ant hills used to get the ants. Not all the ants at once, though. It's basically hitting multiple ant hills to conserve the food supply, not deplete the resource. Really like that. That's very fascinating. And just in closing, the amount of people of all ages, the conversations between everyone was amazing. People there who, for the most part, believe, who some of them had an encounter or just dragged there by their crazy friend or family. It was just cool to be in such a resonating area. Like you said, around 280 tickets were sold. And we got to meet Sheldon. Sheldon was absolutely fantastic. And I'm just so happy he was able to put this on because there's so much valuable insight shared with the community. It was a larger than expected turnout. And I really hope that this carries on into future conferences. But I mean, in closing, was there anything like you wanted to highlight? Anything you just had a great time with or anything like that?
Oh, I think you covered all of it. I've just been trying to pitch in with what I can in between here. I think it was amazing. It was a good conference, and I'm glad that I went to it.
Yeah, it was a good experience. I just side note here. I love that your room is so dark. I know the listeners.
Yeah, we started with like the nice natural light coming in through the windows, and I didn't bother to set up the ring light or anything. So I'm just sitting here like in darkness, talking to Taylor with the glow of the screen on me.
You look like you're one of those people on those specific like talk shows where like you're like a witness to a murder or something like that.
I was out in the backwoods.
That's exactly.
And it's like the filtered voice.
Yeah.
When I saw it happen.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this episode of Cryptid Clues. Be sure to go check out the Nicola Valley Bigfoot Podcast and just support Sheldon over on his show. Fantastic guy, fantastic show, just fantastic all-around conference. Hopefully we'll be back next year. As for next week, me and Reuben will be back, and we'll be bringing more content to you in some shape or form, either cryptid, sightings, reports. We have yet to decide, but it will be there, and it'll be ready for you. So thank you very much for tuning in. Reuben, where can they find us?
They can find us at CryptidClues.ca. Send us an email if you have anything you want to chat about. If you want to be on the show, send us a report. CryptidClues@gmail.com. And if you want to share some love and support us, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/CryptidClues, or just share the show with friends or people you think might want to listen. You can find us on almost all social media otherwise. And with that, have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.